What's up, everyone? Welcome to another great week of Fantasy Factor. I'm Matt Gagnon alongside Mike Legage, who I believe wanted to get us started right off with your sit of the week.
That's absolutely right, Matt. Let me start things off with a bang here, saying that for Week 8, my sit is Patrick Mahomes. I know last week I went on a bit of a tangent regarding his lackluster play, but since we met last week, he has found a way to let me down even further. So let me begin this sit of the week by examining his performance in the Chiefs' 27-3 loss to the Titans. Mahomes went 20 of 35, 206 yards for no touchdowns, an interception, and a lost fumble. This stellar performance earned Mahomes a whopping 7.74 fantasy points. Even Derrick Henry threw more touchdowns last week than Mahomes did, which that can't happen. And this performance also helped drop Mahomes down from second leading fantasy quarterback to fifth. Again, rehashing my statements from last week, I didn't draft Mahomes in the third round for him to be an above-average quarterback. And I certainly didn't draft him that high to score 7 fantasy points. Now, Matt, give me a chance to calm down by giving us your sit of the week.
All right, Mike, here's my sit of the week. To be honest, he's about to be my drop, but I'm still giving him a chance. Tyler Lockett is my sit of the week. He has been doing terribly recently, not just since the loss of star quarterback Russell Wilson either. Lockett has been quietly doing terribly this season, which is odd to see, I feel, just because he's commonly a pretty middle-high round draft pick. The first 2 weeks were amazing for him, but since then he has done nothing substantial, certainly nothing that would justify keeping him on my starting lineup, especially because I have him in my stacked 6-man league. Of course, there's a chance that he does well against a shaky Jacksonville team, but Geno Smith seems to like throwing to Metcalf over Lockett every chance he gets. Maybe I'm jinxing it in a good way for Lockett, but I just can't see him breaking this bad streak of games this week. Let's get into some good news, Mike. Who's your start of the week?
All right, so my start of the week is Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Van Jefferson. So this pick could double as an add of the week since he's only rostered in 9% of fantasy leagues. But obviously Cooper Kupp is getting the majority of the targets from quarterback Matthew Stafford. However, as teams start to double and triple cover Kupp, this opens up opportunities for the other Rams receivers to make an impact. Jefferson made the most of his opportunities last week against the Lions, catching 4 passes for 43 yards and a touchdown. Jefferson would make a great flex option in many leagues, and perhaps maybe a borderline wide receiver too if your other receivers are on a bye week. But especially next week, I expect him to have a big game since the Rams take on the Texans, who have absolutely zero chance of being able to cover all of the Rams wide receivers. Now, Matt, why don't you wrap up this start-sit segment with your start of the week?
My start of the week is Chubba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers. Filling in for Christian McCaffrey, he's been getting a lot of the Panthers' offensive load, especially with Sam Darnold's recent struggles. He's certainly had on and off games, but I expect Hubbard to have a good week against a weak Atlanta defense. Playing the Falcons with a struggling quarterback is a perfect opportunity to give your running back the opportunity to take the game for you. He's projected 15.5 points by ESPN for this week. I don't know if that'll happen, but I would expect at least over 10 points for this running back in a potential flex spot this week if you need one. Now, Mike, before we get to our pick'em game of the week, why don't you tell our lovely fantasy viewers who your MVP is on your fantasy team at this point in the season?
So my MVP of the season to date is 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel. We've talked about him a few times on the show so far. He's averaging over 21 points per game in PPR scoring. He is the leading receiver on my team in terms of total points, and is the third leading scorer on my team behind only the quarterbacks, Mahomes and Hurts, and is only averaging 2 less points per game than Mahomes. It's a down season for Mahomes, but still, that's crazy. And Samuel is carrying the load is a major part of the reason why I'm currently third in my league with a record of 4-3. Now, Matt, who is the MVP of your team to date?
My MVP of my team this season is Ezekiel Elliott so far on the Dallas Cowboys. Aside from a weak first week, the former Ohio State running back is getting between 17 to 25 points a game. I feel like Elliott gets quite a bit of scrutiny around the league by analysts and whatnot, but he's always fairly consistent. Hopefully I'm not jinxing him right now, but it's definitely been a start for every week this season, which is great, especially when some of my other running backs are pretty shaky. It's nice to be able to rely on Zeke, just for my team. All right, Mike, why don't you give us your thoughts on Packers versus Cardinals on Thursday?
All right, Matt, so I got the Packers emerging with the victory in this one, simply because I think the Cardinals are due for a loss. I mean, nothing against the Cardinals who are playing incredible football right now, obviously. They're 7-0. I just think the Packers will be able to sneak out a victory here. Since their Week 1 blowout loss against the Saints, Packers have won 6 straight and are arguably just as hot as the Cardinals. Despite Devontae Adams most likely being out due to COVID, I still see Aaron Rodgers finding a way to get this one done. The Aaron duo, Rodgers and Jones, will have to carry the load. I expect the Packers to rely more on the ground game with the absence of arguably the top receiver in the league. Don't tell D-Hop I said that, though. But I haven't picked a score in a while, so for the sake of this game, I got the Packers winning 31-27.
I'm going to go with the Cardinals on this one for the same reason that you just went for the Packers, Mike. The Packers are definitely hot right now, but the Cardinals are also hot with all of their players. D-Hop is questionable but expected to play, as is J.J. Watt. And Devontae Adams is most likely out, and he's most of their offense, I would argue. Not to mention Kyler Murray's having a stellar season, and the Cardinals' defense is doing amazing as well. I think it'll be a very close game, but I see the Cardinals taking this in a close matchup. I'll just say 31-27 as well, just because it's your score, Mike. Let's wrap things up. Before we go, your thoughts on Eagles-Lions?
So for those of you who tuned in last week's show, you might remember our brand new segment titled, What Week Will the Lions Get Their First Win? And my answer was, of course, in Week 8 against the Eagles. And Matt, I'm sticking to my guns here, especially after a gutsy performance against a true Super Bowl contender in the LA Rams. Despite being winless after 7 weeks, the Lions have only been defeated by more than 2 scores twice. So what that means is that they're playing very close games and they're playing opponents tough. And to build off what you said last week, Matt, Lions head coach Dan Campbell is a great coach who I have a lot of respect for. He gives his all week in and week out. He's also not afraid to show his emotions, which just adds to the narrative of him being a great coach regardless of the record. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for heartbreaking last-minute field goals, particularly Justin Tucker's record-breaking 66-yard field goal that should not have happened if the refs called delay of game, the Lions would also be 2-5 like the Eagles. I mean, they've had horrible luck, and I expect the Lions to bounce back, leaning on DeAndre Swift, who has emerged as a star out of the backfield for a weak Lions offense. Through 7 games, he's piled up over 600 total yards and 5 touchdowns. If the Lions win this game, it will be because of his performance. Matt, your thoughts?
I gotta say, Mike, I didn't think the Lions would win until they played Denver in December, but that might change for me this week. I guess I'll explain my thoughts. The Eagles are looking very unstable recently. Granted, their past 2 weeks have been pretty tough opponents against the Bucs and the Raiders. But I expect them to have a tough game against the Lions this week. The Lions have played well against a lot of opponents, but remember, Mike, they haven't beaten any of them.
That's true.
An opinion on the Lions right now really depends on a glass half full or half empty attitude. I'm going to say half empty, unfortunately, and say that the Lions will lose this game in another close affair. But I hope I'm wrong. I really do. The Lions are a fairly talented team with an intriguing head coach that really seems like a regular guy and a fan, more than a coach in some way, yet still a good coach at the end of the day. I'm rooting for the Lions, but I have to say the Eagles are going to win this one 28-27. Missed field goal or something. Missed extra point, maybe.
All right, everyone, that's about all we have for you this week. Make sure to tune in next week as we welcome MCTV's own Sean McAvoy to the set ahead of his Week 9 matchup against Matt. As always, thank you for tuning in to Fantasy Factor. I'm Mike, he's Matt. We'll see you next time.